Have you ever felt a chill on a lonely highway at night? Welcome to Untold Stories, where we unearth the tales too eerie to forget. If you love a good scare, smash that like button and subscribe for more unforgettable chills. Meet Jack Turner, a highway patrol officer whose routine night shift on Highway 13 turned into a nightmare. Strange whispers, vanishing shadows, and a road with a mind of its own. What really happened under that moonless sky? Stick around for the full, spine-chilling story. You won't believe what's coming next on Untold Stories. The dashboard clock glowed 11:58 p.m. as Jack Turner slid into the driver's seat of his highway patrol car. He adjusted his cap, the faint smell of coffee lingering on his uniform from a spill earlier that evening. Highway 13 stretched out before him, a desolate ribbon of asphalt swallowed by the night. It was late October, and the air carried a bite that seeped through the car's cracked windows. Jack had worked the night shift for 5 years, patrolling this lonely stretch between nowhere towns, but tonight felt off. The sky was moonless, the stars hidden behind a thick shroud of clouds, and a stillness hung over the road like a held breath. Jack wasn't superstitious, but he'd heard the stories, whispers traded over stale donuts at the station. Highway 13 had a reputation. Truckers spoke of flickering lights, hitchhikers who vanished from passenger seats, and stretches of road that seemed to loop endlessly. He always chalked it up to exhaustion or cheap whiskey, but as he shifted the car into gear, a shiver crawled up his spine. The radio crackled faintly, emitting static instead of the usual chatter from dispatch. He tapped it, muttering, "Come on, don't crap out on me now." The first hour passed uneventfully. The hum of the engine and the rhythmic thump of tires on asphalt lulled him into a familiar rhythm. He scanned the road, his headlights cutting through the dark, illuminating nothing but faded lines and the occasional reflector. Then, at mile marker 66, he saw it, a flicker of movement by the roadside. A figure, tall and thin, stood just beyond the reach of his lights. Jack slowed, squinting. Another drunk wandering too far from the bar, he grumbled, flicking on his high beams. But the figure was gone. The shoulder was empty, nothing but gravel and weeds swaying in the faint breeze. Jack rubbed his eyes, blaming the long hours. "Seen things already?" he muttered, forcing a laugh. He pressed the gas, determined to shake the unease gnawing at him. Little did he know, this was only the beginning of a night that would unravel his grip on reality. 20 minutes later, Jack's unease deepened. The mile markers were wrong. He just passed 66, but now the rusted sign ahead read 65 again. He frowned, checking his odometer. The numbers flickered wildly, 120 miles, then 87, then back to 120. "Piece of junk," he cursed, tapping the dashboard. The car's tech had been glitchy before, but this was new. A faint sound broke his focus, a whisper, soft and fleeting, like words carried on the wind. Jack rolled up his window, but the sound persisted, brushing against his ears. He couldn't make out the words, just a murmur that sent a chill down his neck. Pulling onto the shoulder, he grabbed his flashlight and stepped out, boots crunching on gravel. The air was thick, oppressive, as if the night itself was pressing down on him. He swept the beam across the road. Empty. No animals, no wind rustling the trees, just silence. Then, there it was again, the figure. It stood 50 yards ahead, motionless, its silhouette stark against the dark. Jack's pulse quickened. The figure wore what looked like a long coat, tattered and old-fashioned, its face hidden in shadow. "Hey!" Jack called, his voice echoing unnaturally. "You lost?" No response. He took a step forward, and the figure seemed to shift, receding without moving its legs. Jack hesitated, then reached for his radio. "Dispatch, this is Officer Turner on Highway 13, mile 65. Got a possible pedestrian." requesting backup. Static. He tried again. Nothing. The radio was dead. Gritting his teeth, he advanced, keeping the figure in his sights. But the closer he got, the farther it seemed to drift, always just beyond reach. A cold sweat beaded on his forehead. "This isn't right," he whispered. Then, in an instant, the figure vanished. Jack stumbled, his flashlight beam darting wildly. The road was empty again. Heart pounding, he retreated to his car, slamming the door and locking it. "Get it together, Jack," he told himself, gripping the steering wheel. But the whispers lingered, faint and mocking, as he pulled back onto the highway. The night grew stranger. The familiar landmarks of Highway 13, billboards, gas stations, the old oak at mile 70, were gone. In their place rose twisted, skeletal trees and crumbling structures that loomed like silent sentinels. Jack checked his GPS, but the screen was a blank gray void. His phone showed no bars, the battery draining faster than it should. "What the hell is happening?" he muttered, a knot tightening in his gut. A sign appeared up ahead, Whispering Pines Rest Area, 1 mile. Jack frowned. He patrolled this route hundreds of times and never seen that name. Still, a rest stop meant people, maybe a phone. He turned off, following a narrow road that wound through dense woods. The rest stop emerged from the dark, a cluster of low buildings, their windows black and lifeless. A flickering street lamp cast jittery shadows across an empty parking lot. Jack parked and stepped out, the silence swallowing the echo of his car door. The main building's sign hung crookedly, the letters faded, "Welcome to Whispering Pines." He pushed open the door, wincing at the groan of rusted hinges. Inside, time seemed frozen. The decor screamed 1950s, vinyl booths, a jukebox with cracked glass, vending machines coated in dust. A stale, musty smell filled the air. On the counter sat a guest book, its pages yellowed and curling. Jack flipped it open, scanning the entries. Names and dates stretched back decades, the last one dated October 31st, 1953. Below it, scrawled in shaky ink, was a warning: beware the shadows. They hunger. His stomach dropped. Halloween night, 70 years ago. What happened here? The lights flickered, and a wave of cold swept through the room. Jack's breath fogged in the air, his flashlight trembling in his hand. Footsteps echoed behind him, slow, deliberate. He spun, beam slashing the darkness. Nothing. The steps grew louder, closer, stopping inches away. A voice hissed in his ear, low and guttural, "Welcome to Whispering Pines." Jack bolted, heart hammering as he burst outside. He leapt into his car and floored it, tires screeching. In the rearview mirror, the rest stop vanished, replaced by a wall of trees. It was gone, as if it had never been there. Gasping, he clutched the wheel, the whispers now a chorus in his mind. The highway refused to let him go. Every turn looped back to mile 65, the scenery warping with each pass. A rusted truck appeared once, taillights glowing red, only to vanish when Jack blinked. A deer crossed the road, its eyes human-like and pleading, before dissolving into mist. The radio sputtered to life, spitting garbled voices that sounded like screams. Jack's hands shook as he drove, the gas gauge dipping dangerously low. Then, a new sight emerged, a diner, its neon sign blazing, "Last Chance Diner." Relief washed over him. People meant safety. He pulled in, tires crunching on gravel, and stepped inside. The place buzzed with life, waitresses poured coffee, truckers laughed over plates of pie. A jukebox played a tinny rendition of Blue Moon. He approached the counter, where a waitress, Betty, her name tag read, smiled warmly. "What'll it be, hon?" I need help, Jack said, voice hoarse. I'm lost. My radio's dead. Can I use your phone? Betty's smile faltered. Phone's out. Storm knocked the lines down hours ago. Jack slumped. Can you tell me how to get back to the main highway? The diner fell silent, every head turning toward him. An old man in a faded flannel shirt spoke up, his voice like gravel. Ain't no main highway from here, son. You're in the loop. The loop? Jack echoed. The highway's cursed, the men said. Every Halloween, it traps folks. You don't leave till dawn, if you make it that long. Jack's mouth went dry. Make it through what? Betty leaned close, whispering, the shadow man. He hunts the lost. The lights dimmed, then died. A frigid wind howled through the diner, shattering windows. Screams erupted as patrons scrambled. Jack fumbled for his flashlight, its beam revealing chaos, tables flipped, people cowering. In the center stood a figure, tall and formless, made of writhing shadow. Its eyes burned red, locking onto Jack. You, it rasped, voice scraping like metal on stone. You've come to join us. Jack stumbled back. What do you want? Your soul, it said, gliding closer. Or your sacrifice. Panic clawed at him, but a memory flashed, the guest book's warning. Beware the shadows. They hunger. Maybe he could bargain. Wait, he shouted. I can give you something else. The shadow man paused, tilting its head. Speak. There's a rest stop, Whispering Pines. It's full of souls. Old ones. Take them instead. A low rumble emanated from the entity, almost a laugh. Show me. With no choice, Jack led it outside. The diner's patrons watched, wide-eyed, as he drove back to the highway, the shadow man a dark mass in his passenger seat. The forest parted, and Whispering Pines reappeared, its windows glowing faintly. Jack parked, gesturing to the building. There. The shadow man flowed inside. Screams erupted, hundreds of voices, trapped and anguished. The walls pulsed, shadows writhing within. Then, silence. The entity emerged, its form thinner, less solid. The debt is paid, it intoned. For now. It dissolved into the night, leaving Jack trembling beside his car. The highway shifted. Mile markers aligned, landmarks returned. Jack drove until he reached the station, the first light of dawn breaking the horizon. He filed a report, leaving out the impossible details. No one would believe him. He quit night shifts after that, but the whispers followed, faint echoes calling him back to Highway 13. Each Halloween, he'd lock his doors, draw the curtains, and pray the shadows stayed on the asphalt where they belonged. Ever felt watched on a lonely road? Meet Alex Carter, a tow truck driver on Highway 47, where the night shift turns eerie. Whispers in the fog, moving shadows, and a road that traps him, what lurks on this cursed stretch. Stay tuned for the full details, you won't believe what's out there. Alex Carter had been driving tow trucks for over a decade, and the night shift on Highway 47 was his domain. The road stretched like a black serpent through the heart of nowhere, connecting small towns that most people only pass through on their way to somewhere better. At night, the highway was a different beast, quiet, desolate, and steeped in shadows that seemed to swallow the headlights of his truck. He heard the stories, of course. Every local had a tale about Highway 47. There was the one about the ghostly woman in white who appeared before accidents, her scream shattering the silence before vanishing into thin air. Then there were the phantom cars, sleek, black vehicles that raced alongside you before disappearing at the next bend. And let's not forget the strange lights that danced in the sky, leading drivers off the road and into the abyss. Alex didn't believe in ghosts. He believed in flat tires, engine failures, and the occasional drunk driver. But even he had to admit that Highway 47 had a certain atmosphere at night. The way the fog rolled in from the fields, the eerie silence broken only by the distant howl of a coyote, and the feeling that you were being watched from the darkness beyond the road. It was a feeling he'd grown accustomed to, but tonight it was stronger than usual. The air was thick with anticipation, like the moment before a storm breaks. Alex checked his watch, 11:45 p.m. 15 minutes until his shift officially started. He took a sip of his coffee, the bitter taste grounding him, and waited for the first call of the night. At exactly midnight, his radio crackled to life. "Alex, you there? Got a job for you." He picked up the receiver. "Go ahead, Sarah. Stranded motorist near mile marker 23. Says their car just died, no warning. Can you check it out? Mile marker 23. Of course. That stretch was notorious for accidents. Some said it was because of the sharp curve, others blamed the poor lighting, but the locals whispered about something more sinister. On my way, Alex replied, starting his truck. The engine roared to life, and he pulled onto the highway, the headlights cutting through the darkness. As he drove, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The fog was thicker than usual, curling around the truck like ghostly fingers. The radio, usually a comforting background noise, was silent, not even static to fill the void. When he reached mile marker 23, he spotted the car, a late model sedan, its hazard lights flashing weakly. He parked behind it and grabbed his flashlight, stepping out into the chill night air. "Hello?" he called out, approaching the vehicle. The driver's door was ajar, but there was no sign of the motorist. He peered inside, keys still in the ignition, engine off. On the passenger seat lay a journal, its pages fluttering in the breeze. Alex picked it up, curiosity getting the better of him. The entries were dated over the past week, each one more frantic than the last. October 10th, I think something is following me. Every night, I see it in the rearview mirror, a shadow, just out of sight. October 12th, it's getting closer. Last night, I heard whispers through the radio. I can't make out the words, but they sound angry. October 14th, I found symbols carved into my car door this morning. I don't know what they mean, but they scare me. The final entry, dated that day, sent a chill down Alex's spine. It's here. I can feel it watching me. If anyone finds this, please don't come looking for me. Alex closed the journal, his heart pounding. This had to be a prank, right? Some kid trying to scare people. But the fear in those words felt real. He decided to check the area. Maybe the driver had wandered off. As he shone his flashlight into the woods beside the highway, he heard a faint whisper, like a voice carried on the wind. He strained to listen, but it was gone. Probably just my imagination, he muttered, turning back to the car. That's when he noticed something etched into the paint on the driver's side door, a symbol, just like the journal described. It looked like a circle with jagged lines radiating from the center, almost like a crude drawing of a sun. A cold breeze swept through, and Alex shivered. He needed to get back to his truck and call this in. As he walked away, he heard it again, the whisper, clearer this time, "Help me." He spun around, flashlight beam darting through the trees. "Who's there?" he shouted. No answer. The woods were silent, the fog thickening. Alex hurried back to his truck, locking the doors as soon as he was inside. He grabbed the radio. "Sarah, you there? I've got a situation here." Static. Then, a faint voice broke through, but it wasn't Sarah's. It was a chorus of whispers, overlapping and indistinct, yet filled with desperation. Alex dropped the receiver, his hands trembling. This wasn't happening. He was a rational man. There had to be an explanation. Maybe the radio was picking up interference from somewhere. But deep down, he knew that wasn't it. Something was very wrong on Highway 47 tonight. Determined to find the motorist, Alex decided to search the area again. He grabbed a spare flashlight from his truck and ventured into the woods, following a narrow path that seemed to lead deeper into the darkness. The trees loomed overhead, their branches twisted and bare, like skeletal fingers reaching for the sky. The fog clung to the ground, making it hard to see more than a few feet ahead. Every step felt like walking into a void. After a few minutes, Alex stumbled upon a clearing. In the center stood an old stone altar covered in moss and vines. Symbols were carved into its surface, matching the one on the car door. Around the altar, the ground was scorched, as if a fire had burned there recently. Alex's stomach churned. This was no place for a rational explanation. He turned to leave, but a figure emerged from the shadows, a woman, dressed in white, her face pale and eyes hollow. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, her voice echoing unnaturally. Alex froze. "Who are you? Are you the one who called for help?" She shook her head slowly. "I am beyond help. But you can still escape. Leave now, before it finds you." "Before what finds me?" Alex demanded. "The shadow," she said, her eyes darting fearfully. "It feeds on fear, on the lost souls who wander this road. It's been here for centuries, and it won't let you go." Alex's mind raced. This had to be a hallucination, or perhaps the woman was mentally unstable. But the cold dread in his gut told him otherwise. "I can't just leave," he said. "There's a stranded motorist out here somewhere. I need to find them." "They're already gone," the woman replied sadly. "Taken by the shadow. If you stay, you'll be next." Before Alex could respond, the woman vanished, dissolving into the fog. He stood alone in the clearing, the altar looming behind him. A low growl rumbled through the trees, and the temperature dropped sharply. Alex's breath came out in visible puffs as he backed away slowly. The growl grew louder, closer, until it seemed to surround him. He turned and ran, branches whipping at his face as he sprinted back to the highway. Bursting out of the woods, he saw his truck, a beacon of safety. But as he approached, he noticed something terrifying. The symbol from the altar was now etched into the side of his truck. Alex's heart pounded. Whatever was happening, it was targeting him now. He jumped into the truck and slammed the door, fumbling for the keys. As he started the engine, the radio blared to life, filled with static and whispers. Among the noise, a clear voice emerged. "You can't escape, Alex. You're part of this now." He floored the gas pedal, tires screeching as he sped down the highway. The fog thickened, and the road seemed to stretch endlessly before him. No matter how fast he drove, the mile markers remained the same, 23, over and over again. Panic set in. He was trapped in some kind of loop, unable to leave the haunted stretch of highway. The whispers grew louder, taunting him, and shadows danced at the edge of his vision. Desperate, Alex remembered the woman's warning. Maybe there was a way to break the cycle, to confront the shadow and free himself. He slowed the truck and pulled over, taking a deep breath. "All right," he said aloud. "If you want me, come and get me." The air grew still, and a figure materialized in front of the truck, a towering mass of darkness, shaped vaguely like a man, but with elongated limbs and eyes that glowed like coals. You dare challenge me? It hissed, its voice a cacophony of tortured souls. Alex stepped out of the truck, his legs trembling but his resolve firm. What do you want? Why are you doing this? I am the guardian of this road, the shadow intoned. I claim those who trespass, those who dare to travel alone in the dark. But why? Alex pressed. What purpose does it serve? The shadow paused, as if considering. Long ago, this land was sacred, a place of power. But it was desecrated by those who built this highway, and now I am bound to it, feeding on the fear and souls of those who pass through. Alex's mind raced. Is there a way to free you, to end this curse? The shadow's eyes narrowed. Only if one willingly takes my place, becomes the new guardian. Alex recoiled. I won't do that. There has to be another way. There is no other way, the shadow snarled, advancing toward him. In a flash of inspiration, Alex remembered the altar in the woods. Perhaps if he destroyed it, the shadow's tie to the land would be severed. He turned and ran back into the woods, the shadow's enraged roar echoing behind him. Reaching the clearing, he grabbed a heavy branch and began smashing the altar, chips of stone flying with each blow. The ground trembled, and the shadow appeared, its form flickering. Stop! You don't know what you're doing. But Alex didn't stop. With a final swing, the altar cracked in two, and a blinding light erupted from the fracture. The shadow screamed, its body disintegrating into wisps of smoke that were sucked into the light. Then, silence. The light faded, and the woods returned to normal. Alex stood panting, the branch still in his hand. The fog lifted, and the oppressive atmosphere dissipated. He made his way back to the highway, where his truck waited. The symbol on the side was gone, and when he checked the radio, it was functioning normally. Sarah, you there? He called. Alex, where have you been? I've been trying to reach you for hours. He glanced at his watch. It was 6 a.m. The entire night had passed in what felt like minutes. I'm okay, he said, still processing what had happened. Just had a strange night. As he drove back to the depot, the first rays of dawn breaking over the horizon, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that something lingered. Had he truly banished the shadow, or had he merely postponed its return? Only time would tell, but one thing was certain, Highway 47 would never be the same for him again.